Hi Professor, this is Unit 772 Database Fundamental. My name is Charles. In this video is the project about 9.2D User Interface and Embed SQL Profile. And the content in this video include how I do this project and steps, shows the user interface, and will explain what did I learn in this report. First is how I do this project and step. I will walk you through the setup and demonstration of a simple web application project. This project involves creating a web form to add student records to a SQLite database and viewing the students in the database. I am using Node.js, Express.js, SQLite, HTML, CSS, and JavaScript for this project. For the project overview, let's start with a brief overview of the project structure and the tools I have used. First is Node.js and Express.js for server-side scripting. The next SQLite for the database, and next HTML and CSS. This is for the front-end interface. And the next is JavaScript for client-side validation and server communication. And the next, I will show you the project structure. Our project directory contains the following files and folders. The first is Node modules. It contains all Node.js dependencies. The next, public underscore HTML. This folder contains index.html and styles.css and the index.html. The HTML form for adding students and a button to view all students. And in the same folder, I use style.css. This is the CSS file for styling the web page. And in the main folder, the next one is server.js. This is the main server file. The next one is package.json. This is a list project dependencies. And the last one, package.log.json. This automatically generates file for logging the dependencies versions. For setting up the project, I initialize the project and install dependencies. So I open the terminal and navigate to my project directory and run these commands. This will create a package.json file and install the necessary dependencies. Step 2. Set up the server. I create the file named server.js. Then I write a code for server.js. And below I will explain each part of this code. For the first 4 lines, I importing modules. So first is Express. This is a web application framework for the Node.js to build web servers. And SQLite 3, SQLite library for Node.js to handle database and operations. Third line is body parser. This is middleware to parse incoming request bodies and the path. The Node.js module for working with files and directory paths. The next one is setting up the server. So in these 2 lines is app and port. Apps is create an instance for the Express application, and port is the port number for server will listen on. And then I code the middleware. So I code the app use and body parser.json. This will parse incoming JSON request bodies. And express.static. This will serve static files such as the public underscore HTML directory. And next of the code is for database setup. This line of code is for create an in-memory SQLite database. Then I creating and populating the student table. And this is related to the mini project about my English school. This is for the student table. db.serialize ensures the database operations are executed in sequence. And db.run, this line of code will execute SQL commands to create the students table and insert initial records. The next section is API to add a student. First one is app.post. This will define an endpoint to handle post requests to /add-student. And you can see req.body. This contains the data sent by the client. Validation, it's check if required fields are present and valid. db.prepare is prepare an SQL statement to insert a new student. stmt.run, this will execute the prepare statement with the provide data. And stmt.finalize, it will finalize the statements to release resources. And the next section is API to get our students. So first is app.get. It defines an endpoint to handle GET requests to /students db.org. It will execute our SQL query to retrieve our students and res.status 200.json. This will send the retrieved data as the JSON response. And then I starting the server. The app.listen, it will start the server and listens on the specific port. And console.log will log the message indicating that the server is running. And by this setup, we'll provide a fully functional website that can handle adding new students record and retrieving our students records from an SQL database. Then we will look at the code inside the index.html. Start with .type HTML to declare the document type and version of the HTML, and then I set the language in English. Then in the head section, there is 4 lines. Meta charset is UTF-8. We'll specify the character encoding for the HTML document, and the meta name will port content while device byte initial scale 1.0. This will ensure that the page is responsive to the different screen sizes. Then I set the title, and then I set the link reference. This will link the style.css to this code. Then next is the code for body section and form section. The H1 is mean the main heading. The form ID, the student form. This form is for adding a new student. And label and input elements. View various fields for user input. And in pattern, we'll ensure only letters and space are allowed in the student name. And required, it's ensured the field must be filled out before the form submission. The select ID, grade level, this drop down for selecting grade level. And the button type, submit, it's for submitting the form. For view student button and list section, I use button ID. View student button. Button will fetch and display all students, and div ID student list is contained to display the list of students. Div ID message will contain to display success or error message. And the next part is form submission. The line event listener will listen for the form submission, submit event. Next, prevent default will prevent the default form submission behavior to handle it via JavaScript. Form data will collect the form data using form data object. Data object will convert form data to a simple object data. Fetch API will send the post request to the server at add student with the form data in JSON format. And for the response handling, success will update the message element that the success message from the server, and error is updates the message element with the error message if something's go wrong. And the last part will be fetching and display our students. Event listener will listen for the button click event to view all students. Fetch API will send and get requests to the server at students to fetch our student data. Response handling. If success, we clear the previous content of the student list element, and will check if no students are found and display a message if true. It will check a table and populate it with student data. Appends the table to the student list element, but if it error, it will update the student list element with an error message if something's go wrong. That is all my code in index.html. That is how I made the project in step by step. Next, we go to see the user interface. Okay, now I will give you to look how my web server look like. Cool, and the next I will bring you to my web server. So let's start with running the terminal. And the server is located there. Okay. Next I go to localhost. So first I give you to look at my student information. There's a data table before I put any information. And the next is if I didn't input any of my name, that should not allow me to add the data to the table, and should be warning me with an error message. Yeah, please fill out the form. if I accidentally put it in number, so guess it will stop me too. Yeah, it's a warning message. Please match the request format, only letters and space allowed. So I will try to put it correctly. Okay. And okay. Okay. So I will put it. Yep. Okay. When I put it correctly, there is message says student add successfully. I think I have to re-click it again to update the data, and that's it. That's my name and my information that I just had. I can add more, and when I click it, the information will appear more as much as I put. Last, what did I learn in this report? In this project, I learned how to create a full-stack web application using Node.js, Express, and SQLite for managing student data. The process involved setting up an Express server to handle API requests, creating an SQLite database to store and manage student records, and designing a modern responsive HTML form with CSS for user interaction. I also gained experience in implementing form validation, handling client-server communication with the Fetch API, and dynamically updating the web page. With JavaScript, this project provides a comprehensive understanding of integrating back-end and front-end technologies to build a functional and user-friendly application. Thanks for your attention. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask me anytime. Thank you so much.